Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
1. Introduction. It is late April in the year 2025. Many important things are happening around the world. People everywhere are watching the news. They want to understand these big events and changes. The world feels busy and sometimes uncertain. One very significant event is the recent death of Pope Francis. He was the main leader of the Catholic Church for many years. He was 88 years old when he died in Rome. Pope Francis was born in Argentina, a country in South America. He became pope in the year 2013 after the previous pope decided to stop working. Pope Francis was known for trying to connect with people. He was sick for a short time before he passed away. Many millions of people around the world feel sad about his death. Important leaders from many different countries are planning to travel to Rome. They will attend his funeral to show respect. This large meeting of leaders might also be a time for them to talk. In the United States, Donald Trump is president. This is his second term as the country's leader. He started his new term earlier this year. President Trump is involved in many international discussions. Another important leader is Volodymyr Zelensky. He is the president of Ukraine. His country, Ukraine, is still in a serious war with Russia. This conflict causes much suffering and is a major focus for world leaders. Finding a way to end the fighting is a big challenge. There are ongoing talks and pressure to find a peace agreement. Other changes are happening in different regions. Some countries have had elections recently. These elections sometimes change who is in power or how governments work. International relationships are also changing. Countries discuss how strong their armies should be. They talk about how much money they should spend on defense. This is important for groups like NATO. Some leaders feel their countries need to be stronger for safety. There are also difficulties inside some countries. Governments face hard choices. Sometimes people do not agree with their leaders' decisions. This can cause tension. In parts of Asia, there are also serious problems between neighboring countries. These situations need careful handling. Leaders are trying to manage these issues and keep things stable. Overall, late April 2025 is a time of significant global activity. Many leaders are busy. They are meeting, talking, and making important decisions that will affect the future. People continue to watch world events closely. The coming weeks will likely bring more news about peace talks, political changes, and international cooperation or disagreement. 2. World leaders meet. Pope Francis died in late April. He was 88 years old. The reason for his death was a stroke. He had been sick with pneumonia just before this happened. His birth name was Jorge Mario Bergoglio, and he was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He became the leader of the Catholic Church in 2013. This was after the previous pope, Benedict XVI, decided to retire. Pope Francis was the first pope ever to come from the southern part of the world. As pope, he often spoke about helping poor people and taking care of the environment. His last time speaking in public was on Easter Sunday. He died the very next day. Before the funeral, his body was placed inside the famous St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Many people visited to show respect. Rome was very busy during this time. Visitors came from many countries. The funeral service took place on April 26th. Many important world leaders traveled to Rome to attend the service. Leaders from many different countries were present. These leaders included President Donald Trump from the United States and President Volodymyr Zelensky from Ukraine. The President of Argentina, Javier Milei, was also there. Argentina was the Pope's home country. While they were at the Vatican for the funeral, President Trump and President Zelensky had a meeting. They met inside St. Peter's Basilica. This happened shortly before the funeral service began. They spoke together for about 15 minutes. This meeting was important because of the continuing war in Ukraine. Officials from the White House later talked about the meeting. They said the talk between President Trump and President Zelensky was very productive. This suggested they felt the discussion went well. President Zelensky also commented on the meeting. He said that their talk had the potential to become historic. This means he felt it could be very important for the future. After leaving Rome, President Trump shared his thoughts online using social media. He spoke about the war in Ukraine and the Russian President, Vladimir Putin. President Trump questioned if President Putin truly wanted the war to end. He mentioned that Russia had launched missile attacks on Kyiv, Ukraine's capital city, earlier that week. President Trump wrote that there was no reason for Putin to be shooting missiles into civilian areas. Civilian areas are places where ordinary people live and work, not places for fighting. President Trump's comments showed he was thinking about the war and if it could end soon. He seemed worried about President Putin's actions. 3. Ukraine peace talks. America began putting more pressure on Ukraine. The American government wanted Ukraine to find a way to make peace with Russia soon. They believed it was time to end the long war. To help this happen, America's Vice President, J.D. Vance, shared a new peace proposal. This proposal included some difficult ideas. It suggested that Russia could keep the parts of Ukraine it currently controls because of the fighting. This is a very hard thing for Ukraine to accept, as it means losing land. The proposal also talked about Ukraine's future relationship with other countries. It said Ukraine should agree not to become a member of NATO. NATO is an important military group of North American and European countries. Many countries in NATO help protect each other. This part of the plan means Ukraine would not get that protection from NATO members in the future. However, the American plan did not try to limit the size of Ukraine's own army. Ukraine could still have as many soldiers and weapons as it felt it needed to protect itself. This part was maybe a little better for Ukraine. Even before Vice President Vance announced this plan, Ukraine's President Zelensky made his position clear. He stated very strongly that Ukraine would never agree that Crimea belongs to Russia. Russia took control of Crimea many years ago, but Ukraine and many other countries still see it as Ukrainian land. President Zelensky repeated that this point cannot be negotiated. President Trump commented on the situation. He suggested that if Ukraine did not accept ideas like this, the terrible fighting would just continue. He called the war a killing field, meaning a place where many people are dying. He seemed to believe a deal was needed quickly to stop the deaths. The United States also made a serious threat. They warned both Ukraine and Russia. If the two countries could not agree on a peace deal soon, America might stop helping with the peace talks. America could walk away from the negotiation process. This put more pressure on both sides to find an answer. But while leaders discussed peace, the war was still happening. Russia launched more attacks. Recently, Russian missiles hit Kyiv, Ukraine's capital city. These terrible attacks killed 9 people. This sad news showed that the conflict was far from over. Finding a path to peace that both sides could agree on looked very difficult. The pressure from America was strong, but the disagreements between Ukraine and Russia were also very deep. 4. Changes in Europe. Europe is seeing some important changes. Countries are thinking more about their safety and defense. This is happening because of events in the world, making governments look closely at their plans. One country making changes is Spain. The Spanish government announced a new plan for its military spending. Spain is doing this because other countries asked them to. America and Spain's friends in Europe believe Spain should spend more money on defense. Many of these countries are part of a group called NATO. NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, a group where member countries promise to help protect each other if one is attacked. Right now, Spain spends about 1.28% of its total money each year on defense. This total money is called the Gross Domestic Product, or GDP. Spain's spending level is the lowest percentage in the NATO group compared to the size of its economy. Allies have put pressure on Spain to increase this amount. The Spanish government has listened to this pressure. They plan to spend more money on defense by the end of the year. The new target for Spain is to spend 2% of their GDP on defense. This is a significant increase for the country. However, this planned 2% might still be below future goals. NATO countries are discussing a possible new target for defense spending. This new target could be 3% of GDP for all members. So Spain's plan to reach 2% is a step, but it might need to increase spending again later if the NATO target changes to 3%. The leader of Spain, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, talked about this decision. He said that Spain is a country that loves peace. He used the word pacifist to describe Spain. This means the country prefers not to fight or use military force. His comment shows that increasing military spending might be a difficult subject for the government and the people in Spain. Many countries in Europe are looking at their defense spending now. They feel it is important to be ready and strong because the world feels less safe for some. Events in Eastern Europe make countries think carefully about their armies and equipment. They want to be sure they can protect themselves and help their NATO allies if necessary. Increasing defense spending is not easy for Spain. It means the government must find more money for the military. This money might have to come from other areas, like education or health care. Also, because the Prime Minister mentioned Spain prefers peace, some people in Spain might not agree with spending much more on the army. It is a big change for a country that has spent less on defense for a long time. Spain's decision shows how world events and pressure from allies can change a country's direction. This change in Spain is part of a bigger trend in Europe, where many nations are working to make their defense stronger. 5. Trouble in Washington. There were problems inside the American government in Washington. President Trump made changes at the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS. The IRS is the government office that collects taxes. Mr. Trump removed Gary Shapley from his job as the acting leader of the IRS. Mr. Shapley had only started the job a few days before. Why did Mr. Shapley lose his job so fast? Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, was not happy with Mr. Shapley's appointment. Mr. Bessent leads the Treasury Department, which includes the IRS. Reports said Elon Musk, a famous businessman, supported Mr. Shapley, but Mr. Bessent wanted someone else for the position. Because Mr. Bessent disagreed, President Trump chose a new acting leader for the IRS. The new person is Michael Faulkender. Mr. Faulkender was the person Mr. Bessent preferred. This quick change meant the IRS had 3 different leaders in just 1 week. This showed things were not stable at the tax agency. At the same time, there were also problems at the Defense Department, called the Pentagon. The Pentagon manages the country's military. Pete Hegseth is the Defense Secretary, the leader of the Pentagon. News reports said Mr. Hegseth shared secret government information. He used a messaging app called Signal to send it. What information did he share? It included details about American military attacks against Houthi fighters in Yemen. This information was sensitive and should be kept secret for security reasons. Mr. Hegseth sent these details to his family members and also to his lawyer. Sharing this information was not allowed. Because of these problems, the top spokesman for the Pentagon left his job. His name was John Elliott. A spokesman gives official information to news reporters. Mr. Elliott did not leave quietly. After leaving, he wrote an article for the press about his time there. In his article, Mr. Elliott wrote about the problems with Mr. Hegseth's leadership. He said things at the Pentagon were very confused and not organized. He used the word disarray to describe the situation. Mr. Elliott also wrote, "It's been a month of total chaos." His words showed big difficulties inside the Defense Department. 6. Education and security news. Harvard University is having problems with the American government. Harvard is a very famous university. It usually gets money from the central government. This money helps the university with research and helps students. But the government decided to stop giving these federal grants. Now, Harvard has started a legal case against the government because of this decision. The White House gave an answer about the situation. A spokesperson said that the government plans to stop giving this kind of money to big, rich schools like Harvard. They believe these schools have received help for too long. There was also sad news from India this week. A very serious attack happened in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. This area is in the north of India. Men with guns attacked a group of tourists. The tourists were visiting a beautiful place in the region. The gunmen opened fire on them. Reports say that at least 26 people were killed in the attack. Many others were likely hurt. This attack was very shocking. It was the worst attack against visitors in the Indian part of Kashmir for a very long time. It has been 36 years since an attack like this happened. There has been conflict in this region for many years, with some groups fighting against Indian rule. After the attack, a group put a message on social media. The group is called the Resistance Front. It is not a very well-known group. In their message, they said that they were the ones who carried out the attack. However, the government of India does not believe this group acted alone. Indian officials said that the Resistance Front is working for a different group. They believe it helps Lashkar-e-Taiba, an organization based in Pakistan. India says Lashkar-e-Taiba was the group that attacked the city of Mumbai back in 2008. Because of this recent attack and the connection India sees with Pakistan, the Indian government took strong action. They decided to close the main border crossing between India and Pakistan. This was the only official place for people and goods to travel between the two countries in that area. Closing the border shows how serious the situation has become between the neighbors after the violence against the tourists. 7. North American neighbors. Canada held its national election on April 28, 2025. Canadian citizens voted to choose the members for their House of Commons, which is a key part of their government, the Parliament. The Liberal Party won the highest number of seats in this election. The leader of the Liberal Party is Mark Carney. Because the Liberals won the most seats but did not win more than half of all the seats, they formed a minority government. This means Mr. Carney became the Prime Minister, but his party does not have full control. They will need to get support from members of other political parties to pass new laws and budgets. The final results showed that the Liberal Party secured 169 seats out of a total of 343 seats available. Soon after the election results were clear, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, gave his reaction. He commented publicly about the Canadian election. President Trump repeated an idea he had mentioned before, that Canada should join the United States and become the 51st state. This topic, along with Mr. Trump's policies on trade taxes called tariffs and past talk about annexation, was discussed during the Canadian election campaign. President Trump also posted his thoughts on social media. He suggested that if Canada became a U.S. state, Canadians would benefit. He listed possible advantages like much lower taxes and a stronger military paid for by the U.S. He also promised that Canadian businesses, including cars, steel, aluminum, wood, and energy industries, would become 4 times bigger. He added that there would be zero tariffs or taxes on trade between them. If Canada joined the U.S., these comments attracted attention because they came from the leader of Canada's closest neighbor and trading partner. Despite these unusual suggestions, President Trump made a phone call to the new Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney. The purpose of the call was to congratulate Mr. Carney on his party's victory in the election. Reports from the White House mentioned that the two leaders had a positive conversation. They also agreed to arrange a meeting in the near future to discuss matters between their two countries. Other international activity happened earlier in the month. Before the Canadian election and the attack in Kashmir, the American Vice President J.D. Vance traveled to India. His visit was focused on discussions about trade between the United States and India. While there, he met with India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. After their talks, Mr. Vance stated that they had made good progress towards a possible trade deal. He also expressed positive views about Prime Minister Modi and emphasized the warm relationship between India and America. India is keen to finalize a trade agreement because the U.S. is its largest trading partner. An agreement could help India avoid potential future tariffs imposed by America on Indian goods. 8. The President's First 100 Days. President Trump's second time leading the country was reaching an important early point, his first 100 days in office. This period is often seen as a time when a new president sets the direction for their government. Many people watch presidents closely during these first months. They look at the president's actions and decisions to understand their plans and style. How do Americans feel about President Trump's work as this 100-day mark approaches? We can look at his approval rating. An approval rating shows the percentage of people who think the president is doing a good job. President Trump's current approval rating is 41%. This means less than half of the American people asked approve of the work he is doing. This 41% rating is significant when we compare it to the past. It is the lowest approval rating for any newly elected president at the 100-day point going back many decades, at least since President Eisenhower. It is also lower than President Trump's own approval rating after 100 days during his first term as president. This historical comparison shows that public support at this stage is unusually low. The president's approval has also gone down in the last few months. It has fallen 4 points since March 2025. It has fallen 7 points since late February 2025. This shows a clear downward trend. Fewer people approve of his job performance now compared to when his second term began. Looking closer at how strongly people feel reveals more. Only 22% of Americans say they strongly approve of President Trump's work. This is a new low point for his strong approval numbers. On the other hand, 45% say they strongly disapprove. This number, 45%, is about double the percentage of people who strongly approve. This large gap shows that strong negative feelings about his performance are much more common than strong positive feelings right now. When President Trump won the election and started his second term, his approval numbers were actually quite good. They were the strongest of his political career at that moment. But as the first 100 days draw to a close, the views of many Americans have become more negative. Public opinion has clearly shifted downwards during these early months. The overall public mood regarding the president's performance appears quite critical at this traditional milestone.